Hey, it's Justin Goff, and I'm here with Carolyn Gretton, a Copy Accelerator member who recently made a big leap from doing around 2 to 3K a month writing copy to now consistently having $10,000 months for her last 4 months. So I know basically a 4X of her income. And so I wanted to really have her on to dig into what she was doing to make that happen. Kind of why she made the leap. She used to be a journalist and did a lot of content writing and made the switch to copywriting, which I think is really fascinating. So we're going to dig into all that and kind of hear more of Carolyn's story. So Carolyn, let's talk about kind of where you were when you started. So before copywriting, you're obviously a writer, but not a copywriter. And you kind of, I'm assuming you had some frame of reference of what copywriting was at the time, right?
Actually, when I thought about copywriting, I thought of the Madison Avenue definition of copywriting. It took a long time for me to really get a true sense of the direct response end of copywriting. When I first went to college, there were two paths you could take as a writer. You could be a journalist, or you could be writing professionally at meeting advertising. And I chose the journalism route. I had these grand dreams of becoming an overseas correspondent, reporting from like all the trouble spots in the world. Didn't exactly work out that way, but had some pretty good jobs along the way. Ended up working in the business end of journalism, worked for Dow Jones Newswires for several years. And little by little, the department that I worked for was whittled away through layoffs. And when the layoffs finally got to me, I made it through 3 rounds, and round 4 was my losing round. I decided that it was time for me to maybe strike out on my own and, do the freelance thing for a while. So after an interruption to work overseas for a year, I came back. That's actually where I started freelancing. And then I came back with that business and started to build a freelance editorial business. So still doing journalism kind of writing, just doing it on my own. Wrote for some trade magazines, did a lot of writing in the pharmaceutical and healthcare areas. And then things started to dry up right around the time of the market crashing at in the late O's, the late 2000s. And little by little, my clients started to go away until maybe by like the mid 2010s. I was starting to think that maybe it was time for me to expand my skill set a little bit and look to different areas of writing besides the editorial writing that I'd just been so comfortable doing all this time. And that's when I stumbled upon copywriting. I actually stumbled upon it through an ad that was in a travel writing course that I was taking. It was the AWAI "Can you write a letter like this one" ad that pulled me in. So I ordered the course and then sat on it for 18 months. Didn't really do anything with it. Was still, checking the travel writing thing out, and then realized that that was going to be very much the same kind of battle that I was fighting all along with editorial writing. So I finally opened up that copywriting course and found out that it wasn't just all about Madison Avenue writing, ads that show on TV and, show up in magazines, that there was a whole direct response component to this copywriting thing that I'd never known about. And I found it really interesting and fascinating. So after finishing that course, I started to look for clients and realized that I was having a lot of trouble finding the kind of direct response clients that were mentioned in this course. So I started doing a lot of content writing work, something that I was pretty comfortable with because it was a pretty easy transition from the editorial work that I had been doing. Did that for I'd say a couple of years, and then that business started to, some of the clients that I had, those contracts ended, and I was finding that the jobs that were becoming available were paying less and less money. So again, I decided to redouble my efforts to find some more, email, sales letter, classic direct response kind of writing. Found it very, very difficult. The few jobs that I did find, a lot of it was full-time, and then the jobs that weren't full-time were very competitive. So the whole field was very, very difficult. I was finding it very difficult to break into. So that brings us to 2020, and I was seriously considering just dropping the whole thing altogether and going back to editorial, which is where I felt comfortable. And there was a position that opened up, freelance position that opened up that I took. The money was not what I wanted, but I figured it was better than making nothing at all, which is what I felt like was going on with copywriting. Then I came across Stefan's RMBC course, and that's how I came into Copy Accelerator, and things changed dramatically for me after that.
Love it. So let's kind of talk about those early stages in copywriting. Do you remember? I'm always curious. Like, do you remember the first kind of client you got in terms of actual copy? Like the first time you got paid to write copy?
I do. It was a supplement company, and it was an emerging supplement company. So it hadn't been around for very long, and they were looking for somebody to do email newsletters. So it was, pretty much like writing content. So I would write the blog posts, and then I would write an email, kind of like summarizing all those blog posts and sending that out to their mailing list and their customers.
Nice. Do you remember what you got paid for that?
It was $3,500 a month. So I was writing a lot of content for them. So it was a good job. It just didn't last very long.
It's not bad for your first gig though.
Not at all.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I really want to tap into is kind of that transition from content to copywriting. I'm really curious. I did not come from that world myself, so I'm kind of curious. Was there a lot of stuff you had to unlearn in terms of writing, in terms of I think more writing in general?
With journalism, you have to get to the point fast, and it took me a while to get the rhythm of kind of guiding the person through the story at a pace that wasn't quite so fast as, with journalism. You have your lead right up front, and pretty much everything they need to know is in that first sentence or that first paragraph. So that was definitely something that I had to unlearn, because as you know, with like a sales letter or something like that, it's more of a, you kind of like you're unfolding a story, and you're kind of like guiding your reader along. You don't put it all up front in a sales letter the way you do in a story for a newspaper, a story for a magazine.
That's a great point. I mean, both of them, you have to grab their attention right away and get them reading, but it's two very different. And in the sales letter, it's grab their attention, get them reading, and then really like butter them up and get them interested in what you're about to talk about.
Exactly.
And then finally kind of reveal what you're going to talk about. Whereas that makes sense. So I'm kind of curious, that first year of copywriting, usually for most people, is pretty tough, because it's like, you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. Like, I'm curious, when you got like AI course, or when you got Stefan's RMBC, for you at that time, did it feel like it was just like a lot to kind of go into?
The AWAI catalog is extensive, and yeah, it was definitely a fire hose effect doing that kind of course. And then RMBC was interesting for me, because one of the things that I had a really hard time breaking down was the whole sales letter process. Like, I could get emails, I could get like the shorter forms of copy, but that sales letter was a hard nut for me to crack. RMBC really made it make sense to me for like the first time. And it was just, it used to take me, the times that I had tried to write a sales letter, like a sample sales letter, it had taken me weeks and weeks and weeks. And with RMBC, the time was, I'd say, cut by more than half.
Nice.
Like, I could write a sales letter in a couple of weeks. It was pretty amazing.
Do you think you would have been better off focusing early on something kind of smaller, like maybe that would have been emails or advertorials or ads, instead of going into the sales letters?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's true. Although I did write some email newsletters, but it really wasn't really like the same thing as, your pure direct response promotional email type stuff.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's one of the things Steph and I really have gotten on the same page with a lot of new writers, is trying to crank out that 40-page sales letter when you're brand new is like kind of trying to eat the elephant, or it just,
I agree wholeheartedly.
It's a lot. And I mean, there's so much in terms of like the flow of everything and how it goes together. And yeah, but like you said, email, like, you can understand email pretty quickly. I mean, within a month, you
Absolutely.
could be writing pretty decent emails, just
Yeah,
off some kind of basic templates that kind of teach you what to
sure.
say.
Yeah, I guess for me, it was the challenge of it. And also, I found that with sales letters, there was that storytelling element that really kind of appealed to me, which is why I was so determined to crack that nut. And, that's why RNBC was, such a revelation to me, because I felt like, it was finally, oh, this really makes sense to me now.
So one thing I do want to ask you about is going back to, so when you're writing content, you had been doing this for, I don't know, at least a decade, if not more.
Yeah, more.
Okay, so multiple decades. This was kind of your career. It's always interesting to me. I was mentioned to you before the call. We've had a lot of people recently, kind of coming into Copy Accelerator world, coming into my email list, who are looking for this kind of later in life career shift. It's kind of a new thing, at least for me, because a lot of the people we work with 20s, 30s, and 40s, but to see more people in their 50s and 60s coming in looking for something, their kind of new thing later in life. I'm curious, was there anything, obviously, like making better money, I'm sure was a big driver for you. And you mentioned
Sure.
kind of seeing the jobs dry up in the content world was obviously scaring you. Um,
Mhm.
what were some of your other drivers of kind of making that switch?
Um,
Or was that the main one? I mean,
the
if
main driver was definitely, I mean, I wanted this to be a career. I didn't want this to just be something that I was doing on the side. I wanted this to be a career shift. And it seemed to me that, that making a career out of content really wasn't going to work for me financially. And, and in terms of like the amount of time too. I mean, I had plenty of time. I was freelancing. So I had full-time hours available. And I just really wanted to fill that with the most interesting and the best paying jobs that I could possibly find. And content just wasn't doing that for me anymore. So that's why I really wanted to make that shift to direct response.
what would you say has been the biggest thing you've struggled with, being a copywriter? It could be the actual copy itself. It could be kind of like your own mindset limitations. I'm curious, what's been your biggest struggle so far?
Mindset has definitely been an issue. I've always felt like I mean, the writing end of things, I've always felt pretty good at, even though there definitely was a learning curve with copywriting. And I mean, I'm still learning to this day, absolutely. But I definitely think there was a mindset involved. Sometimes just the fear of not being able to find the clients, and then going up against other people with more experience, and oh, is what I have enough, is definitely a conversation that I'm constantly having in my head. It's like, oh, is it enough? That kind of thing. That's definitely been a limitation of mine, and it's something that I've been working on with coaches, definitely.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I think I'm glad you're sharing that, because it's one of those things that you feel like it's only happening to you. And then you actually start talking to everybody else and you realize 98% of the other people feel the exact same way.
Yes,
Um,
even people that are making like, multiple six figures, it just really shocked me. I
yep.
remember, yeah, I mean, I remember talking to one of those copywriters, and, him being nervous about, a particular thing that he was about to do. And I was just shocked. I couldn't believe it. But it really kind of like gave me a little bit of comfort to know that I am not the only one by far who feels that way.
I think a lot of it is the reality of being in a kind of creative job. The constant self-doubt and thinking that your stuff's not good enough and comparing yourself to others. I I have a belief that it goes pretty hand in hand with a lot of creative type stuff. It's one of the downsides of it, but it's like,
Mhm.
in order to have a kind of thing that you really like and the freedom that we have, like there has to be a downside to it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Can't all be good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I once heard somebody, I don't know if I read it somewhere, or if I heard somebody say it, that, creative people tend to be pretty neurotic. And yeah, I mean, I guess it comes with, being in such a, like a solo kind of environment, especially for writers. I mean, we're constantly working alone. I mean, that's what makes things like Copy Accelerator, groups like Copy Accelerator so important, because, we are solo, we are doing it alone so much of the time, that when you finally, have that chance to make that connection with a community, it's just, it's such a relief. It's such an energizing and, kind of like supportive kind of thing to do.
Yeah, it's something that I think I really, really underestimated back when I was freelancing, because I was very much the lone wolf type, just did everything on my own. I had the belief that I didn't need anybody else's help and that I could figure it out all on my own. And I was able to, but it also took me probably 2 to 3 times as long as it should have had I actually had that community, that group. I mean, back when I was doing there really wasn't anything like Copy Accelerator or Copy Chief or one of the other numerous coaching programs that are out there. But yeah, I agree. I think it's not only on the writing side, but as you kind of said with the mindset stuff and getting like just having, when you're really doubting yourself and your copy, having 2 or 3 other copywriters looking at your stuff and saying like, no, this is actually really good. You're just kind of going through one of those tough spots. It's very reassuring.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, just that confirmation is really, really helpful. And it kind of like gives you that momentum that you need to push through and get the project done. Because if you're just sitting there and, spinning your wheels by yourself, I mean, you could be stuck forever.
Very true. So one question I want to hop into. So I always love asking this, knowing what you know now, and what's kind of worked for you in terms of copy and getting clients and stuff like that. What's something that you know now that you wish you would have known kind of back when you were starting with copywriting?
How much faster you develop with a mentor or a mentoring community. Because I really was, I mean, even though I had that course, I mean, it was just basically, it was me and the course. I really didn't have the community that I have now, and the opportunities for mentorship that I have had, over the past couple of years. And I mean, that just absolutely, my growth just skyrocketed having access to that. So that is definitely the one thing that I wish that I had known from the beginning, because I think I would have gone a lot faster.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the same page. I'm always very open with this when people ask, like, even if people ask me about joining like a competitor's copy program, they're like, "Do you think this is a wise investment?" I'm like, "Yes, in my experience, is the best way you can invest your money is getting someone who's already done it to teach you what to do." Because the ROI on that is it beats anything else you can really do with your money. And I still kind of live that philosophy today. Whether it's joining other masterminds, whether it's getting help with building my business. I mean, it's funny too, because like it's even my own advice, and sometimes I forget about it, and then like realize, oh yeah, like if I want to grow Copy Accelerator, my coaching program, let's go find someone who's done it and has one that's 2 times or 3 times the size of mine. Let me pay that person to tell me how to do it, because they know all the landmines, they know all the mistakes, they know all the stuff that I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I stumbled around in the dark for so long, like for a couple of years, just trying this, trying that, trying cold emailing, cold email pitches, which worked like maybe 1 out of every, I mean, God, I think I sent out hundreds of them. And, like 1 out of every 50 would hit and, maybe get me a response. And then, 1 out of every 5 of those maybe would get me a job. So it was a lot of like feeling around. And, as far as, the things like I was talking about the sales letter, just not really having that, somebody who has done it before, it was just so much easier when somebody who's done it before was able to, say, hey, this is great, but this is missing, kind of thing.
Right. So let's go back to that. So you said getting a mentor earlier is one of the things you wish you knew at the start. Anything else you can think of that you know now about copy or getting clients that you kind of wish you had known when you started?
I wish I had known. I'm trying to think. I think that, I mean, the main thing is definitely the guidance. And I wish I had known more copywriters,
Mm.
just not just even for mentorship or for, the kind of critiquing that I get now. I wish that I had more of a community of copywriters to hold me accountable for things, because sometimes I feel like I could have pushed myself even harder, and it was hard for me to do that by myself. Whereas, I'm part of an accountability group now, and now it's like I have that, kind of like we push each other and encourage each other and that kind of thing. And it would have been nice to have had that back then too. So community is a big thing for me. I think community has really taken me far in this business.
Love that. Love that. I think it's spot on. The mentorship, the community, and then really just writing every day and put into practice what you're learning from kind of the mentorship.
Absolutely.
It's kind of the secret sauce of getting good really quickly.
Mhm.
Let's talk about kind of where you're at now. So you've done really well. Last couple of months have been your best months yet, hitting 10K months. I'm curious, can we break down those 10K months? Like what type of copy are you writing? Are you doing like retainer clients? Are they one-off gigs? What's that all kind of look like?
I've got a retainer client. I've been doing a ton of emails for people. I've been doing a lot of funnels, like full-on funnels, and I'm doing like right now, I'm doing a sales letter for Stefan and Luke. So
Oh, great.
yeah,
Nice. That's a big one.
yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about it. I'm really having a good time with it already.
Any specific niches you are focusing on?
Health and wellness.
Okay.
It was funny. I kind of went back and forth about it at first because I didn't know if that was really where I wanted to go. But I had a fair amount of experience on the other side of things. So I tend to do, of course, alternative health and wellness on this side. So I think that my experience on the more pharmaceutical kind of, traditional side of things is given me a unique perspective on this.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you're also the primary target market for the majority of health products.
Absolutely.
You are the person they're trying to sell to.
Definitely.
Um, okay. Any is there any interest in other niches? Is there anything maybe you have your eye on that you might want to write for someday?
I've thought about financial. I mean, when I worked for Dow Jones, my specialty was actually tech. And so tech has definitely like occurred to me as well. My specialties were tech and health. So from the health side, I've adopted that. But it's one of those things where I've kind of like I've been so busy in my health niche that I think about it and I kind of put it aside. But it might be something that I'm be interested in exploring somewhere down the road.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, just for everybody watching, the health niche is, I would say, probably the biggest and most needed for copy. Financial is probably a close second.
Mhm.
Most of the best copywriters either write health or they write financial or they write both. That's pretty common just because it's the biggest paydays are in those for copywriters. You got the chance to get big royalties. They're a little different in how you write them, but most people tend to gravitate towards one of those. Um,
Yeah, one thing with financial is sometimes I wonder if I'm aggressive enough for something like that. But that would be, well, maybe I bring a different perspective to it. So
yeah, could be. You never know. I think it's one of those things that you have to really enjoy it. So like when I started, I was like a health nut. I was really into the paleo diet and a lot of the biohacking stuff kind of early and working out. So health like really appealed to me. At the time, financial, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand investing. It just was not interesting to me. If I got
mhm.
into copywriting now, I'm actually way more into investing and stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
So I would love writing like crypto stuff. Like I
Mhm.
think that would be right up my alley nowadays. But yeah, it really, I think that's one of the keys. Like if you find something you're actually into and you like to actually like nerd out on reading the Wall Street Journal and like, you'd probably be pretty damn good at financial.
Yeah, and see, health is that for me. I'm definitely a health nerd. I do a lot of reading about, the various different discoveries that are being made, and I find all that stuff just fascinating. I love
Nice,
digging. I love going down the rabbit hole with a lot of these
nice.
ingredients and things like that.
I mean, that's a key trait of being a good copywriter is curiosity. I mean, it's in every good copywriter tends to be pretty curious about a multitude of things, whether it's reading books about World War II or like reading, like you said, like health discoveries, like even if that's not something like that you're normally writing about, like most copywriters tend to have that kind of curiosity to them that they'll be watching YouTube videos on it or just interesting things always kind of grab their attention.
And it really helps to have like that wide, that kind of broad knowledge of different things, not just the area that you're writing in, but, reading books about history or reading books about, politics or things like that, gives you different insights and that you can actually bring into the copy that you're writing, even if it is in a different space.
Yep, for sure. So last thing I kind of want to touch on is actually two more things. So where do you kind of see so you've made this huge leap. You went from 2 to 3K a month to around 10K a month. You're doing great as a copywriter. I'm curious, what's the next like 6 to 12 months look like for you? Is there a certain plan you have? Is it kind of keep going down the path you're going? Is it maybe work with some specific clients? What's that look like for you?
My main plan is, I'm just going to continue to, do the work that I'm doing and continue moving forward, bigger and better. And my plan is to hit 6 figures this year. So I've had that goal in mind for a while, and I think it's going to happen. So it's pretty exciting.
That is very exciting. Love it. Love hearing that. All right. One last question I want to leave you with. Lots of copywriters are probably watching this right now. Some of them probably very inspired by your story. What would be kind of one piece of advice that you would leave any copywriter kind of watching this with in terms of how to make a big kind of quantum style leap that you did in your career?
Find your community, just whatever that community is. And if you can, if you can do it, find a mentor. It's so important. And I made a quantum leap when I found my community and I found good mentors. That just lifted me up. It was such a difference. So that would be my biggest piece of advice to people, whether it's Copy Accelerator or whether it's another community, just don't try to figure this out on your own. Just look there's plenty of people out there that are, dying to support you in this journey. That's one of the things that's been so such a gift to me, is just realizing that not only are there people out there that want to help you, they're eager, they're really excited to do it. It isn't like we're all fighting each other. We're actually, helping each other and lifting each other up. It's pretty cool.
Love it. I love that answer. Cool. So appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think a lot of
Thanks
people
for having me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to hear this and be pretty inspired by the fact that you made this huge late in life career change and you're thriving in it. A lot of people, I think, definitely get set in their ways. I know I definitely have every year I've gotten older. So to see you make that big of a jump, it's pretty inspiring, and it's cool to see how quick you're having success.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So if you're watching and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, feel free to click subscribe below, and you'll get updates anytime I put out new videos. Also, if you have any interest in becoming a better copywriter, there's info in the box below that you can learn about Copy Accelerator, which is the program that Carolyn's a part of. And also you can get on my email list down there and you get a free goodie called my Millionaire Direct Response Blueprint as well, if you opt in. So all that stuff's down in the info box below. Carolyn, thanks again. Really appreciate your time and really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much.